Breath of the Wild is an enigma when it comes to its storytelling. It's set tens of thousands of years after any other game in the series, so far in the future that linking it to the previous games is borderline impossible. The entire Zelda timeline as we know it consigned to a hazy period of history known as the Era of Myth. But even with the timeline set aside, Breath of the Wild hides its fair share of mysteries. Who were the ancient Zonai who decorated the land with their intricate stone structures? What are the origins of the Great Plateau, and why are the ruins of Ocarina of Time's Castletown found upon it? But there's one mystery found in the sprawling wilds that has never been solved. A puzzle with no answer: Mekar Island. Mekar Island is found directly west of the Korok Forest, within the moat that surrounds the thick woodland known as Mekar Lake. The island itself is a rocky plateau, raised above the surrounding water, protecting a single dead tree from the currents of the river. Mekar Lake and the island are obviously named after Makar, the wind sage from the Wind Waker, and like with many location names in Breath of the Wild, its name is slightly altered. Though just like many locations in and around the Korok Forest, it's named after an individual with a strong connection to the forest and to the Deku Tree, just like Lake Saria and Meadow Swamp, named after two Kokiri from Ocarina of Time. Despite being named after Makar, Mekar Island is nearly empty, only featuring a campfire sheltered by the branches of a single tree, a rock, piles of bones, and grass which hides fairies. If this was all the island had, it'd be a strange inclusion in the game. A unique island named for one of the Wind Waker's most iconic characters, yet providing no real reason to travel there. But Mekar Island is a whole lot stranger than it appears. This seemingly unremarkable island is one of the strangest places in the game. Usually, conspicuous locations in Breath of the Wild reward the player with a shrine puzzle, a powerful item, or at the very least a Korok seed. Surely Mekar Island will too. From the shore, or just above Mekar Lake, we can immediately notice something strange. Strong winds blow in all directions away from the island, making paragliding to it difficult. For whatever reason, the developers intended you to notice this island. It sticks out from the lake around it, and it's protected by a wall of gusts of wind. Upon crossing the lake and arriving on the island, we're met with a strange sight. The island isn't designed in the same way as most of the neighbouring Korok Forest. It's barren, dead, and covered in piles of what seems to be animal bones. Sparse patches of grass cling to the outside of the island, but even the tree in the centre appears to be dead or dying, with only a few leaves sprouting from its branches. In the daytime, a few blue choo-choos appear here, 2 medium-sized and 4 small, which are easily dealt with and reward the player with some jelly. Now we're closer to the central tree on the island, we can see more of what Mekar Island has to offer. There's a single large rock lying in the shade, the kind of rock which often hides a Korok. And on an island near the Korok Forest, an island named after an iconic Korok, we'd expect to find one here, right? Only that it's just a gemstone, amber, flint, or opal. The campfire nearby has been built in a clever location by whoever previously inhabited Mekar Island. It's directly under a large tree branch, meaning that if we light it, even in torrential rain, the flames are sheltered by the tree. This tree isn't quite normal. If we climb it, a strong wind begins blowing directly east, away from the Korok Forest and towards the shore of Mekar Lake. This wind isn't present anywhere else on the island. Just when Link climbs the lone tree, a strong breeze picks up. But the strangest feature of Mekar Island is what happens if you rest while on the island, or arrive during the night. The sheltered campfire provides easy means of switching to nighttime while on the island, which will result in 9 Stal enemies clawing their way up from the ground, 4 Stal Koblins, 3 Stal Izalfos, and 2 Stal Moblins. Not only this, but these aren't ordinary Stal enemies. These guys are kitted to the decaying teeth with high level gear. Dragonbone weaponry, steel bows, even ice arrows on a Stalizalfos and bomb arrows on a Stalkoblin, which is the only time in the game you see these sorts of enemies. In fact, all of the Stalkoblins and all but one of the Stalizalfos found on Mekar Island are completely unique variants of these enemies, only found on this island. This Stal Battle Royale is a really cool fight, even if it's not too difficult if you just snipe their exposed skulls. After fighting your way past the army of the undead, sending the last Stal enemy back from whence it came, you're rewarded with nothing. With the exception of the piles of twitching limbs and dropped equipment, it's as if the horde of skeletons never appeared. There's no chest, no shrine, no reward. So what's the point in Mekar Island? What's the point in the rock with no Korok, the tree which calls the wind, the army of the dead? Here we have the mystery of Mekar Island, an island which seems to hide so much, yet the more we look, the less reason there seems to be for the strange events here. I've spent ages trying to dig to the bottom of this mystery. It can't just be a cruel joke by the developers of the game, a trap which lures players in with a sheltered campfire, only to drop 9 Stal enemies kitted out with high-level equipment on them in the night, right? Mekar Island is of course named after Makar, the Wind Sage from the Wind Waker, a Korok who, before the ceremony, became trapped in the Forbidden Woods. Link ventures into the Twisted Forest, slaying the parasitic Kalydemos and rescuing the Korok, who later in the game discovers his true destiny as the Sage of Wind, successor to Fado, one of a duo of sages who must pray to grant the Master Sword its power to repel evil. It obviously makes sense that an island named after Makar in Breath of the Wild is found near the Great Hyrule Forest, but the fact that no Korok is found on or anywhere near the island is strange. There are 900 Korok seeds found across Hyrule, some in the strangest and most remote places in the game, but not here. The fact that the wind picks up strongly when climbing the dying tree, and that winds blow from all directions away from the island, could be a nod to Makar himself being the Sage of Wind, but it doesn't seem convincing enough. It wouldn't explain the Stal onslaught at night. Though Stalfos appear in the Wind Temple in the Wind Waker, they're not strongly associated with Makar. But Stalfos are closely connected to the Lost Woods in the Zelda series. During Ocarina of Time, Fado, a Kokiri, mentions that anyone who becomes lost in the Lost Woods will suffer a dark fate, doomed to wander the endless forest alone as a Stalfos. Mekar Island's close vicinity to the Great Hyrule Forest and the Lost Woods could mean that this onslaught of undead is a reference to the Stalfos, those who became lost in the woods and suffered a curse. The island itself is strongly connected to death. Not only the Stal enemies, but the piles of bones, the dying tree, the extinguished campfire. Even the fairies which can be found in the grass are spirits connected to revival and resurrection. Could Mekar Island be a warning? An island referencing the dangers of the Lost Woods and its connections to death? Maybe. But I think there's one other possibility. One other solution to the mystery. One other connection on Mekar Island. This connection was pointed out by Inukami9 on Reddit, who noticed that the 4 piles of bones surrounding a large central tree could represent something iconic to the Zelda series. We've seen a similar island before, an island featuring a lone large tree surrounded by 4 smaller ones, Level 1, the very first dungeon in the very first Zelda game, all the way back in 1986. While it's possible that the bones are meant to represent the trees, there are 6 piles of bones rather than 4. It doesn't seem to fit well. Until we look more closely at the tree in the centre, which is surrounded by 4 smaller trees. Could Mekar Island be one of the most obscure references in Breath of the Wild? Not just a reference to the Sage of Wind Makar, but to the very first dungeon in the Zelda series. Level 1, also known as the Eagle, is entered via the main tree on an island, accessible only via a small bridge on the east side. The island itself has a rocky perimeter, sheltering it from the lake in which it lies, just like Mekar Island. While the tree on Mekar Island can't be entered, the campfire is on the south side of it, where the entrance would be in Zelda 1. Lifting the nearby rock has a chance to yield a flint, allowing the player to light the fire and rest until evening, resulting in the onslaught of 9 Stal enemies. And in level 1, 3 of the first 4 rooms of the dungeon contain the same enemy in large numbers. Stalfos. It's entirely possible that Mekar Island, one of the most mysterious places in Breath of the Wild, is actually a reference to Zelda 1's first dungeon. The winds provide a challenge to get to the island, and the wind from the tree allows the player to leave, discouraging them from trying to access the Lost Woods in the east and becoming disorientated. The island hides no Korok, no shrine, because it's referencing a game in which these didn't exist. A game where Link would discover a lone rocky island in a lake, and enter a dungeon designed to test his puzzle solving and combat abilities through a central tree. Just like level 1, Mekar Island's Night of the Living Stal assault provides a test for the player, the reward for which is nothing more than pride and a heap of Dragonbone weapons. It's one of the strangest places in the game, a place with seemingly no purpose, but perhaps the true meaning of Mekar Island is a callback to a simpler time, when part of the magic of the game was simple discovery. Thanks for watching this video. What do you guys think about the mystery of Mekar Island? Could it be a reference to Zelda 1's first dungeon? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like, it really helps the channel out, or subscribe if you haven't already for more Zelda content. Cheers guys, and I'll see you next time.